Hey folks, welcome back to our second half of training and development. This is chapter 8 of Fundamentals of Human Resources. This is all about developing your employees for future success. And so in this video, I'm going to talk about specifically career management and development. And so we've talked about training in chapter 7. And so this one's going to be more along the lines of how do you get employees not so much on a skill level, but more on a developmental level better so they can contribute more. I'm going to use the term altruistically to your organization. So let's get started here. Development versus training. And really where what it boils down to is uh, it's the combination, employee development is the combination of formal education, job experience, relationships, and assessment of personality and the abilities. And that's what really helps employees prepare for their future careers. So what I want you to think about is development's all about looking towards future career where training is all about just kind of looking at what a current need is for uh, for for getting somebody a different skill set. Okay, so development's much more long term. Training is kind of right now what we need. So organizations and their employees must consistently expand their knowledge, right? So this is all again about knowledge expansion uh, and their behavior to meet the needs of their customers, right? And compete in today's industries. Uh, what we need to think about is again, organizations are expected to provide development to employees without regard to their gender, race, ethnic background, right? Everybody should be afforded the same opportunities. A lot of times they aren't, and they should be. Nowadays, with the business climate that we're in, organizations must place greater emphasis on training and development, particularly development. To do this, they have to understand development's relationship to training. Development actually implies learning that is not necessarily related to the employee's current job. That's a big difference between the two, right? Instead, it prepares employees for other jobs or positions in the organization down the road. Okay, so that's what we want to think about. Development again, down the road, future benefit, training, current benefit. Okay. Let's go to the next one. So again, looking at this training versus development, training is all about current focus, where development is future focus. Training, the work experience is low, right? Somebody comes in new to the organization, you need to train them up on how to do their specific job. For development, work experience is high. People typically who are developed are people who've been in a certain position for an extended period of time, and now they're ready to develop something greater, right? The goal for training is preparation for their current job. The goal for development is preparation for changes. Okay. Participation typically in training is required. Participation in development really is voluntary. I know lots of people who didn't want to move up in their organization. They were very happy being individual contributors. They weren't looking to advance their career into management or leadership. They wanted to do what they were currently doing, and that's fine, right? That's fine. But you need to make the development you need to make it at least an opportunity for people. You need to make it open to everyone and then let people kind of pick and choose if they want to do it or not, right? And so it is a strictly voluntary activity. Um, Training traditionally focuses on helping employees improve their performance. And then many companies, they have a focus on linking training programs to business goals, where development is really, for me, it's more about developing the employee to be a better employee, but also it benefits them more sometimes. Because they're taking on new responsibilities and they're taking on greater roles within the organization. Uh, the protein career. This is kind of it's not new, but it's relatively up and coming. It's been around for a while, but more people are kind of buying into this. So protein career is not about eating more meat or eating more protein. The protein career is all about an employee who chooses to change more frequently. So chooses to change positions more frequently. It's actually coined, the term protein career is actually coined from Proteus, a Greek god of the sea. He was a mythological god who could change shapes. And so that's what this protein career is all about. It's all about the employee taking ownership of their career and potentially moving into different roles, right? So in the past, workers and employees might think of their career as something a person pursues at one company, and you just kind of rise through the ranks. Today, it's totally different. The more common model is this of that protein career. It's that many employees change careers and change jobs more frequently and based on the person's interests or maybe their abilities or what they value. And so the work that they're doing potentially could change within a given company or from a different company or even different industries. I work with students and professionals all the time who are like, hey, I've got my degree now. I want to try something different than what I'm doing. Okay. That's a version of a protein career based on their values, based on their new education, based on their new skill set. And so for employees, success in a protein career really requires just continuous learning, right? And so employee owner, one of the things I love about it, one of the benefits is it's employee ownership. Employees, they're responsible now for managing their own careers, right? They're responsible for this, right? They focus on this continuous growth path, right? This continuous growth path. And then in terms of matching needs, their interests align, their skills align, their development experiences align uh, through career management. Okay. So aligning their interests, their skills, their development experiences through career management. This is an employee centered, employee owned process. And so that's one of the reasons I love it. It really does give employees autonomy, it gives them more power. Again, you're responsible for shifting. Now, you don't shift. A protein career wouldn't be, well, I just don't like it here, so I'm going to leave. No, that's different. When you think about development, you think about, okay, I want to develop these specific skills. I don't have the opportunity to do that here. Or I want to develop these specific attributes, right? Or I want to become a leader. A lot of times that's where what I hear from my staff and I'm sorry, from my students and other staff members is I don't have the opportunity to grow here. I don't have the opportunity to develop here. I don't have the opportunity to become a leader here. And so a lot of times they take it upon themselves to shift, right? Where in the past, companies have said, hey, you can do this or you can do that. Employees now are taking this up on their own. So I love this. I love this idea of the protein career. The four approaches to employee development. Um, the first is interpersonal relationships, formal education, assessment, and then job experiences. So they all four of these work together to build employee capability for future roles, right? So again, this is not about individual one-on-one training to learn a new software or to learn this one piece of your job or learn how to assemble something. No, what this is about thinking about what your future career could look like and using these four components to get you there. Formal education. A lot of you who are currently working, this is what you're doing right now. These aren't workshops. You're at a university, right? And some of you may move on to do an MBA. What I see is so the workshops and short courses, those are really targeted skill building programs. Those are training programs, right? Online learning, kind of the same thing, depending on how you use it, Could be training, could be development, right? For me, anytime a company invests in somebody or anytime somebody invests in themselves to take on either an undergrad degree or a master's degree, this is all about development. You are looking to develop yourself in a way that is above and beyond training. So formal education, particularly when it comes to executive MBAs, master's degrees, bachelor's degrees, for those of you, you're finishing your bachelor's degree right now. Maybe your company's paying for part of it. That's an organization that believes in development. You're doing this because you want to make a pivot to something else. That's development. Okay. So the formal education piece is really important. Assessment, okay? Assessment. Kind of the overview of assessment is collecting information and providing feedback on behavior, communication, or skills, most frequently used to assess managerial potential. That's real. So a lot of people, when they think about development, they think about what's their next step in their career. And maybe it's leadership, maybe it's management. Maybe it's taking on a bigger role as an individual contributor, whatever it is. The first thing that you need to think about is you need to think about assessing uh, who this person is and what they bring to the table already, right? Just like in training, you want to assess where they stand. This is more about assessing personality styles. This is more about assessing potential for greater things in the organization, right? Not doing these one little individual contributor jobs, but how can this person be a value add in a much more a larger scale for our organization. So a lot of times from the sources, they talk to employees, they talk to their peers, they talk to managers of employees, or they talk to customers of their employees, and they figure out who is this person? Do you see this person being a good fit for management? Methods that a lot of times we use are some of the psychological tests that we'll talk about, right now. And so the two really big ones are the MBTI, the Myers-Briggs, and then the DISC assessment. There's also the strong interest inventory, which focuses on REISAC scores. But really, the two that most organizations use to identify profiles or psychological types are these two. So really quickly for the MBTI, it really assesses different types. The first one is extroversion versus introversion. So how do we engage with the outside world? How do we refill our cup, right? So that's extroversion versus introversion. How do we take in information? That's sensing versus intuition. S is versus N. And so again, how do we take in information? From a sensing perspective, are we concrete? Do we have to see it, taste it, touch it? From an intuition perspective, it's more about looking at the big picture and the grander scale of things, right? Being able to think more futuristically. The other dichotomy is how do we make decisions? Are we thinkers or are we feelers? Do we look at things objectively or do we take people into consideration when we make decisions? And then the final dichotomy is how we live out our lives, right? How we live out our lives, judging versus perceiving. Are we more structured? Do we like our lives more structured, or do we like our lives more flexible? Okay, and so really, you take a combination of those. I'm an ISNJ, so that's what I am in terms of my Myers-Briggs type indicator. The other one that I'm a little less familiar with, I don't really use the DISC often. But the DISC really identifies behavioral patterns across four strategies, right? Dominance, influence, steadiness, and conscientiousness. And so a lot of companies use the DISC as a pre-assessment to figure out if somebody's a good fit. So dominance basically means the person emphasizes results and displays confidence. Um, Influence means the person emphasizes relationships and persuasion. How Steadiness means the person emphasizes cooperation, and then conscientiousness means the person emphasizes quality and accuracy. So what they do is they take these four behaviors and they look at these four behaviors, and if they're looking for people with certain who lean more towards one or two of these behaviors more than the others, they'll usually use those as part of the hiring process. So, psychological profiles are part of the initial assessment of development. Some people, again, are just they want to be, kind of left alone to do what they do and be an individual contributor. And then some people you can assess whether they want to be grander, if they want to move up, if they want to be a bigger, more value add to the organization. Another way to do assessment is the 360 feedback. Typically how feedback happens, particularly on a yearly basis when you're doing performance reviews. Again, the performance appraisal identifies cause of performance discrepancy and develops improvement plans. So that's usually a one-on-one, me with my boss. The 360 feedback gathers input from supervisors, peers, employees, and customers. So you as the employee, I go to my supervisor and I said, hey, I'm looking for feedback. We do the feedback. We do the performance appraisal. I go to my customers. Hey, can you do this survey? How am I serving you? Am I, serving you from a Malcolm Baldrige award-winning world-class customer service orientation or not? So how am I serving you as a customer? Then I look at my peers. I go talk to my peers. Hey, am I a good teammate? How can I be a better teammate? And then finally, if I do have direct reports, I go to my direct reports. Am I a good manager? What am I doing? What am I doing to be a good manager? How am I helping to develop you? You take this 360 uh, feedback from everybody that you engage with, we'll call them your stakeholders, and then you go out and you look at, okay, so now really where can I improve from my supervisor perspective? Where can I improve from my customer perspective? Where can I improve from my peer perspective, my teammates perspective? And then how can I be a better manager? Limitations are it's hard to get done. It's hard to get done. First of all, I will tell you this, having a direct report tell you bad things about you just usually doesn't happen. Kind of the same way with peers. So it's hard to get really honest feedback. Customers, again, can potentially be jaded. So it's really time intensive. You also need a facilitator there. Um, there's not a lot of action steps toward it. The benefits are multiple perspectives. If you can actually make this happen, you really do get formal, and I love these formal communication channels. So the 360-degree feedback, it's not new. Not a lot of companies use it. A lot of people, individual people who are trying to develop themselves, they'll use it. I've done some 360 feedbacks and they're very relevant and they're very informative as well. But that's another type of assessment. Job experiences. So the combination of relationships, problems, demands, and tasks in an employee's jobs. Those are the job experiences, right? This is where all of that development occurs. Um, and so the types of job assignments are really going to be dependent on one, company needs, but also your ability to get things done and what you're looking to get out of your job. Again, I'll keep going back. Some people just want to do their job and be left alone. Other people, they want to develop themselves. They want to move on. They want to be bigger things within their organization. So, with these types of job assignments, right, you could move in kind of 4 to 5 different ways. You can either get promotion, right? You can transfer, do a lateral move. You can do a downward move, which definitely is not development. I don't see a lot of people doing that. You can also do job rotations, right? It's a lateral move again, but you get to see different types of jobs within the organization. A lot of companies do this for entry-level employees. They put them on a 2-year, 1-year rotation program, and they have them do work within different departments and then see which one best fits them. Okay. The other option is kind of outside are these temporary assignments where you're doing special projects or volunteer work. The special projects, particularly, are important in that a lot of times only the best people are asked to take on special projects. Only the most talented of people are asked to be part of a team to do a special project. And so, so if you can get invited to that, take that on, right? Anytime your manager asks you to take on a special project, you jump in there, right? You jump in there. Other key assignment types are job enlargement, right? So job enlargement, and so job enlargement is all about taking on more. It's all about taking on more. Job enlargement really is about asking for more experience. It's all about just growing your work, right? And so any chance, I always tell my students, I always tell anybody I'm talking to, if somebody asks you, say yes. If somebody asks you to take on something new, say yes. This is that mindset of enlargement of current job experiences, right? Always say yes as much as possible, right? And so think about if you get a chance to enlarge your job, do it. Interpersonal relationships, right? There's two types typically, mentor or coach. A mentor is an experienced senior employee who helps develop less experienced the protege. There's also this new trend of reverse mentoring. If I'm a junior to you, I can basically help you become a better leader, right? You would potentially manage me, and I would kind of what we call manage up. I'd hopefully help you become a better leader. Another one is coach, which is a peer manager who motivates employees, right? Helps develop skills. Again, this is all about development. If you're asked to become a mentor, if you're asked to become a coach, yes, the answer should always be yes. Um, Couple other things, career management process. There's four pieces in your career management process. You need to know this one for yourself so you can make sure that your career is being managed effectively. And you also need to know this when you're managing people, that your staff is having their career managed well. So the first thing, data gathering, we need to understand what are the competencies needed for success, so criteria for success, right? We need to have a bunch of different measures. Feedback, all feedback needs to maintain confidentiality. And we want to focus on specific success factors and strengths, right? To improve these areas, right? Goal setting, we want to involve management and coaches, mentors, specify competencies. What are we looking for my next goal, right? People who set their own goals, the people who are looking to develop, set their own goals. They don't wait for a manager to set their goals for them. They look at doing SMART goals right off the bat. Again, specify developmental methods, specify developmental goals. Here's what I want to do, here's where I want to be, here's how I want to get there. And that's the action planning and follow up, right? Involve your management, involve your coaches, involve your mentors. Every good development plan and every person I've ever known who's gone through a development process always has a good mentor. So go find a good mentor, always had a good coach, and always kept their manager involved in this. Always kept their manager involved with this. Um, this is real. The glass ceiling, it's an invisible barrier that keeps particularly most women and underrepresented groups from attaining top jobs. It's just real. Just discrimination happens in the workplace every day. And so I wish it wouldn't. I wish we could do something about it. But we've all heard of the glass ceiling. This is where HR can step in a lot of time with initiatives. One, I think it starts with hiring the right people, hiring the right managers who look at a diverse workforce as an amazing workforce, and so it's really important that diversity plays a part in building your team. And if you have a diverse team and you develop that diverse team, it's going to open up opportunities for people who are typically underrepresented. And so we want to make sure that there is no glass ceiling. There is no barrier to anybody entering this. The only thing that should be a barrier is that maybe you're just not qualified. But race, sex, gender, uh, uh, disability, nothing like that should play a part. And again, a lot of times this is where HR needs to step in. One, make sure they have policies in place for this, and two, that they initiate hiring practices that create a diverse hiring group. Okay. And then succession planning, this is another development plan. I have I'll never forget, when I was thinking about leaving recruiting and stepping into education, I had Whitney Garrity. This is 15 years ago, folks. Whitney Garrity, she was my succession plan. She was going to take over for me in leadership within this large organization that I worked within. And what I love so much, she's still there and she's still thriving, right? And so succession planning from a leadership perspective is identifying employees who potentially could fill my role. I want to define the job requirements, measure employee potential, review and plan to meet developmental needs, link succession plans to other HR systems, provide feedback to employees, and measure the plan's effectiveness. You ideally need to identify high potential employees who potentially could move into new roles. And as a manager, right, it's my job to identify who are those people that I could see potentially in my job. From a employee perspective, if my goal is to take my boss's goal, I need to figure out ways to have more conversations, be invited into the conversation, right? A lot of times we just don't ask to be involved in the conversation. If I want to be a part of a succession plan as an employee, I need to be out there. I need to be thinking about okay, so how can I get closer to my manager? How can I, get their ear? How can I, without subverting my other staff? But I think if I'm a high potential employee and I think I have aptitude to be a manager, I potentially want to have that opportunity. And so again, we want to make sure that in the succession planning, senior managers regularly review leadership talent and that leadership talent regularly engages with leadership. Okay. And finally, one of the thing that typically will slow down development is dysfunctional managers. Managers that just don't need a succession plan. They're never going to leave. And so they're like, I don't need my next me. One, two, they're not willing to develop people. They're not willing to free up time for somebody to be developmental. They're toxic. They're ineffective, right? And so their interpersonal skills are lacking. They're insensitive to others. They have an inability to be a team player or they're arrogant. Operationally, they have poor conflict management. They have an inability to meet business objectives and they're just not adaptable. Managers who engage in behaviors that make them ineffective pose a serious developmental challenge. You know if you work for a manager that just doesn't want to develop you. And so again, people don't quit companies, they typically quit managers. And so again, I'm not, you don't work for that dysfunctional manager and don't be that dysfunctional manager, right? What we want to do is make sure developmental opportunities are open to all of our employees who seek it and who are qualified for it. And so, folks, that's training and development in two lectures. I think this one ran a little long again, but I hope you got something out of this. Read the text, that'll cover a lot more. And I hope you all have a great rest of your week.